want to welcome you all to the coaching webinar. We've got a great guest with us today, Dan Muse. I'll do a quick introduction with Dan. We'll go through some stuff with Dan, and then we'll do some Q&A maybe at the end. I know some of you submitted some questions as well, so we'll kind of hold the questions till the tail end, like kind of Dan go through the presentation. So Dan's a lifelong hockey coach, and we were just talking earlier before we get on. He actually was born here in Chicago, but spent most of his time traveling from different parts of the country, and ended up in my neck of the woods out in the Boston area. And I did notice that I saw a quick story that he did some work out of Ponkapog Ice Arena, and old Ponky, I remember it quite well when I was living out there. But Dan has coached at a variety of levels, and I think the important part, I want to kind of give a little intro to Dan's kind of path, because I think it's interesting, and I think it says something about where we are all at as coaches, and that you can really make it you can make it a profession if you want, and from coaching squirts to high school to coming up into in Division III college hockey. Played Division III college hockey as well out there in the Boston area. Coached at Williams College, moved on to being an assistant coach at Division I at Sacred Heart, and at Yale for several years at Yale, and actually won a national championship there. Actually coached one of my players that I used to coach when he was out there. We'll talk about that later, Dan. And then from there, back here to Chicago with Chicago Steel for a couple of years, and won the Clark Cup with our local USHL team, the Steel. And then that got him noticed, and ended up being working in the NHL with the Nashville Predators as an assistant coach, and now on to the USA Hockey National Team Development Program with the U18 team, where he is now the head coach there in his first year. So that's Dan's background. I will stop there. I think it's good enough, and I want to really give Dan as much time as I can to talk to the coaches and answer as many questions as he can. So Dan, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jim. I appreciate the introduction, and thanks everybody for taking the time to jump on this. It's I think we've all done a lot of Zooms now over the last it feels like a year now. I guess we're creeping up on a year, but it's I think with the craziness that's gone on in the world here, it has given us an opportunity to, I think, share ideas and get to speak to different people that maybe we wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to. And so for that, this is it feels like a lot of Zooms that I've done so far, but everyone that I've done as we've gone through, it's been good to be able to just speak with and talk to some different coaches in different parts of the country. And so thank you very much for taking the time. I hope everybody is doing well and staying safe, and families are safe. When Jim had asked for me to come on and speak, I kind of went through some notes of some different presentations I've done, and maybe, compiled what I hope will be, just some ideas that might be beneficial to everybody that's on the call. I know we have a wide range in terms of ages and levels for that you all coach. And I hope the information that I can give here today is relatable to everybody. Just before I get going and going through some PowerPoint and some video, I think Jim shared my background. I think it's worth pointing out to, one of the things that I think, I'm pretty, proud of that we've been able to have is just being able to work with a wide variety of different age groups, and also being able to work in a lot of different capacities in this game. I came up, it's a different background than most coaches and most people that are in the game, and that, I didn't start playing until I was 11 years old. And I actually started playing in Alabama, of all places, even though I was born in Chicago and I lived in Worcester, Massachusetts, and then Northern California. Didn't actually get on the ice till I was 11 years old, playing in Alabama. And, even before we lived in Alabama, I, really loved the game. I just couldn't play it because there was no place in California that had ice, and wanted to be a hockey player, wanted to get on the ice. And so even when I finally did, at a relatively older age compared to most, it was the greatest thing in the world for me. And, at a young age, I developed a passion for the game. And, for me, I think that's the greatest gift that the game can give you, is just that, finding something that you truly love. And I think everybody that's on this call right now, the game is a big part of your life. And, I think for probably everybody too, you guys are now dedicating your time to be able to help develop that passion for young players out there. And, with all the experiences I've had, and I'm very grateful for all of them, the best thing that the game gave me was something that I was truly passionate about, and something that I could love being a part of, whether it be as a player, and not a good player at that, but then, being able to have this as a profession, and being able to have this as a major part of my life. So, I guess anytime I'm speaking with any coaches, youth level coaches, high school level coaches, this is the greatest game in the world. And I think your jobs are more important than mine, because you're working with the players of tomorrow, or you're working with, young players that, maybe they're not going to play at the highest level. Maybe they're not even going to play college hockey, but, you have the opportunity to help develop passion for something, and help them take the lessons that this game can teach us all, and make them better people as they're going through and growing older, and, just navigating their way through life. So with that being said, what I put together was just some, pretty general coaching philosophies in the way that I view things. And, as I've gone through my coaching career, I do think that maybe my perspective has changed a little bit in terms of how I believe in things, and believe in, teaching the game, and the things that I find the most important in my role, especially as a head coach now in a development league. And so I'm going to share this screen here. Can everybody see that okay? Is a head nod? All right, great. So I'm going to share with you, and I think there'll be a lot of talking points within this information. And then, people like seeing video. I love seeing video, so we'll end with the video. I'm going to kind of just walk you through a little bit of my thought process as a head coach. And, I've had, as I said before, I've been fortunate to work in a lot of different roles in this game. I've been, a second assistant. I've been a first assistant, been an associate head coach, been a head coach, been a video coach. I've worked now from every level, from squirt hockey through the National Hockey League. And so over time, I think I've formulated some beliefs in regards to development. And I hope over time I'll continue to change maybe certain parts of this in regard to how we go about it. But, even from early on, when I started coaching, my first year out of college, I played Division III college. And then I started, actually the first year I was coaching squirt hockey. I was running a skills program for it's Canton, Massachusetts youth hockey. And I was fortunate enough to jump on as an assistant coach for a prep school team. But probably even more importantly, while I was doing that, in my first 2 years of coaching, while doing all those other things, I also, a little bit by chance, ended up working in a classroom. In the first year out of school, I worked as an aide in a special ed classroom at a public school outside of Boston. And then my second year out, I was an uncertified history teacher at a Catholic school right on the border of Boston. And so while I started, my coaching career at the same time, a little bit by accident, I ended up as first in a classroom in a support role, and then as an actual teacher who had never taken an education class in their life and who was not a history major. So I don't know if that's a bad thing for some of the Catholic schools outside of Boston that they hired me, but it was a great experience. And so a lot of, I think, some of my beliefs in coaching really started off from those early years when I was finding my way and kind of learning how to coach, but at the same time learning how to teach. And a lot of these beliefs that I've formed and that I work off of, I think really stem from that experience, and that early on I realized that, as a coach, I am a teacher. This is what we're doing. We're teaching a game, and the development that goes into it, just like I think teachers in a classroom are looking to teach a subject, but they're also there to help develop the young men and the young women that they're working with. And so a lot of these beliefs do stem from, I think, those early years, and they have been built on then through the experiences that I've had at various levels. So for me, the starting point for everything, if you look at kind of the development cycle per se, is, your foundation, your starting point, looking to grow and develop a culture for individual and team growth. And I'll talk about the difference between the two. For me, I believe that the individual and the team need to be continuing to grow. Like, you have your individual development and you have your collective development. And those two things need to work hand in hand, and they need to be continuously worked in growing all the time from both. I think that I say that because every player that I work with, and I think every player just on any given team, they're going to be different. They're going to be a little bit different. How they learn, what they bring to a locker room, what they bring on the ice, where they are, what they need to be developing as people, they're all going to be a little bit different. So if everything is just for the collective and it's just, you might call it just a core curriculum without any individualized curriculum in there, I feel like the potential for, everybody to be working towards and taking those steps towards their full potential will be missed. And then at the same time, it's working on that team growth, because it's a team sport and there's so many lessons that need to be learned. They need to be learning as they go through any given year, in regards to what it means to be a part of a team. And even from there, some players might need, more different lessons when it comes in that regard, of being a part of a team and what that means. But I do believe that culture has to be in place, and it has to be one that's going to be conducive so that both the individual and the team can grow. And then from there, I really break it into kind of the two parts. You got the development of on-ice foundation of fundamentals for the individual and team success, and then the development of the off-ice foundation of fundamentals for individual and team success. So the on-ice, and we'll dive into all of these in a little bit, but the on-ice, I really kind of break it into 4 different parts, where you have your skills, you have your habits, you have your concepts. And then I'll touch on something that I've started to believe in more and more too, is the on ice, we call it the TNT, but the things that take no talent. I got that. It was something that I hit on a lot, I believe, but never really had a term for it. And then I spent half a season with John Hines, who was a former NTDP coach, and he used it all the time. And I kind of stole it from him, but it fits a lot of the beliefs that I had, that you have to be working on those things that go beyond just the skill set. And then from there, you have the development of the off-ice foundation. And for me, that's going to vary a lot from level to level. And so I think for everybody on the call, there's different things that you can be working on in terms of those off-ice foundations. But depending on the age and where the player might be, or the group might be in regards to the development, that's going to vary. The development of mental skills, the character development, I believe that goes throughout for everybody. The leadership development, team building, and then off ice doing the things that take no talent, the things that are hard to do that not everybody does, but that everybody's capable of. And so that you can see now from there, you go into the area that I feel like you don't need to spend as much time on. There needs at different levels, you might not really need much of it at all. But that's what that's where you would find your systems, your strategy, your game plan. I think personally, systems are overrated in development leagues, and all of us, including myself, are working in development leagues. Outside of the National Hockey League, really, I think every league is a development league. College players, you're trying to develop them to be professionals. Like, I think that's got to be part of the goal. I don't think there's a league out there, where that development shouldn't be number one. And so if that's the case, then, your systems for me should come last. All these other things have to be there. And we'll talk about those in more detail. But just to give you an idea of my thought process and what I have found works, those are the main focus points, and there is an order to them. Before we get into kind of breaking down some of those on ice and off ice focus points, just talk a little bit about development, not determinment. And again, I haven't been perfect in this by any means, and this is going to be something that I think over time, really started to believe in more and more. When you say development, we're preparing players for the next level, but you need to understand that they're not at the next level yet. And I know even as a young coach, that was something that I probably struggled with. You need to understand, you need to know what those things are that they're going to need to be successful at the next level that they're at. But if you expect them to know it right away, then I think you're going to be disappointed. And if you're disappointed, then the players are going to have a tough time developing. So there's certain things that, even for myself here, I work with what's been identified and what is, some of the best players in the entire country in their birth year. They're players that are going to all go on and play Division I hockey. They're all draft prospects. Many of them will be drafted up. Many of them will play in the National Hockey League or at least have very long pro careers. They're going to be playing for a long time. And I have a large number of players that I strongly believe will be representing the United States in international play in the future. There's a lot of talent there. There's a lot of ability there. There's a lot of things they don't know, and that's not their fault. We talk about it all the time, and as a staff, we have expectations and we know where we want to build them to, but they're young, and I'm dealing with all these players that are Division I committed, and a lot of them are going to get drafted in this year's draft, but they don't know because they're not supposed to know yet. They're not in that place. We need to help them get there. Sometimes we don't even need to tell them. We need to help be ready for them to make some mistakes so that they can have good learning opportunities to learn. But they're not supposed to know yet. And so I think it's when you're developing, I think it's important there that they're out of their comfort zone and learning, but you got to embrace those mistakes. They need to learn to trust their sticks, trust their minds, trust their feet, while building those new tools, habits, skills, game situational awareness. And I think one of the worst things, and I've learned this, through mistakes earlier in my coaching career, is the worst thing I think we can do for our players is, while we're trying to push them and we'd say it's because we're developing them, getting ready for the next level, we get it where we place hesitation and uncertainty to their game. And because when that's there, they're not in a place to be able to grow anymore, and they're not going to be in a good place to learn. So it's a fine line here when it comes to development and making sure that it is development and not determined. So the on-ice focus areas, and this is what I'm showing you here is the same thing I'd showed my staff when I came in here this year in terms of this is what I believe in. It's actually the exact same slide. This is what I believe is the on-ice focus areas for player development, and breaking it into 4 parts. I wouldn't say that there's one that necessarily takes precedent over the other, but this is on a daily basis, things that we want to make sure we're checking these boxes and that we feel like our players that we're working on, we're giving them the tools to be able to get better. So we break it into skills. That's speaking with a coach recently. I like the term that he used. It's actually for Lunda's U20 coach. They call it their hockey ABCs. I think it's a good way of thinking of it. It's just kind of those building blocks. The skills, it's the skating, the stick handling, the passing, the shooting, their individual base. They're obvious, they're easy to identify, but you got to make sure that you keep working on them. Another term that I thought kind of stuck with me, that I heard a couple of summers ago, was perishable skills. Some of these are perishable skills. If you don't keep working on them, then they're going to disappear. And so that those need to be worked on, and through the different levels that the different coaches on this call are working at, you're going to work on them in different ways. You work on skating in a different way with, 8 and under players than you would with, your midget minor players. There's going to be, obviously, I think USA Hockey's done a good job here of building that out in terms of a progression through the ADM of how that should work. But you have to always be working on them. And, so that needs to be there. And even for a player that's a great skater, well, he needs to continue to be a great skater. He needs to continue to get out of his comfort zone. Maybe what you're doing with that player is going to be different with the player who, isn't as great on his edges, but the skill work needs to be there. The habits for me are their individual based, but not as obvious. So those are the details, movements, behavior, tendencies that are necessarily to be an effective player. I'll go through some specific examples of what I mean by those habits, because I think it is a term in hockey that gets thrown around a lot. And sometimes people use it in different ways to be describing different things. But I do believe that the habits that are there, they need to be, for a player to be effective, they need to get to the point where they can perform them instinctually, where it becomes a natural part of them. Like we talk about it, this is now working, so it becomes a part of your DNA, so that you don't have to, once games hit, like those habits, those good habits are there. but you don't even recognize maybe that you're doing them. They just become a part of your natural instincts. The things that take no talent. So those are controllable actions that anyone can do. Not everybody does because they're hard. And so that's something that I think over the last 3-4 years really started to add in. If I'd given this presentation 3-4 years ago, that piece wouldn't have been in there, even 2 years ago. And but I do believe, that is something that needs to be celebrated with the players. Just like we celebrate, when we celebrate a beautiful goal or we celebrate a big save from our goalies, we also need to celebrate with these players, and they have an understanding that, there's certain things that, maybe anybody can do them, but you're making an impact as a player, and you're making an impact on your team because you do it all the time. They're hard to do, but you do them. And then concepts, and that's where the individual, in the group is connected. The way the game is played, it needs to be played collectively, but it doesn't have anything to do necessarily with systems. So to dive in these a little bit more, the skills is obvious. So I'm not going to get into that much. This is, something just, I've used in the past. I wouldn't be using this for, anyone outside of, probably, high school age players, but just looking at, and we try to have from year to year, all right, what are some of the, using just one in particular skill here, shooting, what are some of the things, what's our checklist for the year? What are these players need to be working on specifically? And now they would never be given this list, but it's more for the coaches. All right, what are some things within our practices we can be making sure that we're including? Whether maybe it's on skills practices, but maybe it's just within the actual practice itself. We want to be adding these in so these players are working on their skill set. And the same thing can be done with passing, stick handling, and your skating. So the one I'll talk about a little bit more, and we'll look at some video on some of this as well at the end, but that habit and detail formation. So examples of primary habits to be developed. So this is just a small list, but these are some of the things that where I am right now, at the National Team Development Program, we're hitting on this. This is taking more precedent than any kind of system. And that was from day one, we were working on these things. This was a heavy focus. And I didn't talk about it before, but as we get into talking about habits and concepts, like this is the foundation for me for all of it. We were here for probably a month and a half, 2 months before we really started to put much in at all in terms of systems. We're going to have some structure. We're going to have a game plan. We want guys to understand how to play within that game plan. I think, but we keep it very simple because we want it to be where it's transferable to the next levels that they're going to. We want to go, and the most important things that they can have that are going to be transferable to anywhere that they go is going to be those habits and those concepts that they're learning. The example I'd use is, how can you forecheck? How can you put in a forecheck and expect it to be any good at all if the player doesn't know how to use their stick, if the player doesn't know how to angle? How can you put in, you can have the best rush offense scheme in the world, but if the players don't know how to read off of each other, how to present their stick, how to support the puck properly, if those pieces aren't in place, then it's not going to work. And the defensive zone, if your players don't understand how to have good stick, if they don't have that habit of constantly gathering information, if they don't have strong habits in the way that they communicate on the ice, then you can have the best D zone structure in the world. It's not going to be effective. And so at younger ages, I think there's no need for systems. I think that you shouldn't have them in there. And we'll get into special teams, but I'd say the same thing for that. We're going to play, and once you're at a level where they're playing in international competition like this, or you're playing in tournaments, you can put it in, but it should be the last thing that goes in. And I think you always have to balance, what are we spending our time on each day? Are we spending 90% of our time on systems and only 10% on this? If that's the case, I tell you that I think you have it backwards. And I'm saying that from even believing, that from what we're doing at the National Team Development Program and from what I saw worked in junior hockey. When I coached for the Chicago Steel, we didn't put any systems in place until we were multiple games into the regular season. We skipped it all. We focused on competing, and we focused on making plays, and that was it. I figured we'd lose games at the beginning of the year because of it, and we'd do well. At the end of the year, we ended up winning 10 games in a row without systems. And I think it tied a league record. So it's, and that was a year too that we won a championship. So this stuff is the foundation for me. This is what takes priority. This for me is where the time should be spent. So hitting on some examples, primary habits for me: facing the puck, information gathering, reading pressure, constant communication, angling, having a stick on puck or stick to puck, stick with a purpose, defensively eliminating hands, offensively stick presentation. So these are just a few examples there of, and you can obviously see the rest of proper habits. Offensively, we talk to our players a lot about getting off of walls. That's a habit. You get the puck, your natural instinct might be to stand still. We want to build in those habits that you get the puck and you have already used that habit of information gathering. You have an idea of where pressure is coming from. You're getting off the walls, and that it's a natural, it's instinctual habit that takes place once the game is being played. So hitting quickly just on things that I mean by takes note of talent on the ice. So things that, I think you should celebrate with your players, because they're important factors as you move up levels. At younger levels, maybe, I think they all factor in, but they're hard to do. Not everybody does them. And so for us, we want to celebrate the guys that do the things that are hard to do, that anybody can do, but not everybody does do. Just some big examples for me that we talk about a lot. Back checking as hard as you forecheck. The guys that are constantly communicating on the ice. The players that have positive body language and positive bench talk. Just those last 3 strides being as hard as your first 3 strides. Setting up the next shift. Shot blocking. I think there is a skill to that, but I'd probably say more the willingness to do it. And again, that's going to vary from level to level. At higher levels, older players taking a hit to make a play. And so, those things, for me, I believe you need to celebrate with your players, because they're major, major factors once you get to higher levels. And sometimes they're the factors that separate players from being able to make it to that next level or not. And then the last one I'll touch on briefly here is concepts. So this is where the game is played, the collective group. It has nothing to do with systems. For me, I touched on this already, but I believe in development leagues, you need to teach concepts that are going to be transferable to the higher levels. So we're giving the players the tools. For me right now, the players I'm working with, the next level for most of them is going to be, really all of them is going to be Division I college hockey. So I want them to have concepts in place that are going to be transferable if they go to Boston University, or if they go to Notre Dame, or if they go to Michigan, or if they go wherever it might be. These tools that they now have are going to be transferable for them to go there. And some of the things that I do here are going to be different than I would do, in top level pro hockey, because this is what they need. So it's a way of thinking, it's a way of reading, reacting. It's under spatial awareness, it's game understanding. And so to dive in that a little bit more, I'll give you some examples. Defensive concepts, defensive triangles, loose and ready, that pre-movement positioning, teaching them how to cut the ice. These are certain terms that, are going to be applied maybe more for my team specifically, but these are going to be things, steering control, reading and recognizing, influencing the play, creating confusion and uncertainty. We talk about finishing the job, that close is not close enough. That's second quicks are really, really important for the way that we play. And so these are just some of the concepts, in the D zone. They hear me say establish, close, kill more than they hear anything about systematic play. Because for me, it's a concept. It's a concept, and it's going to be them reading off of each other as they do it. Breakout and rush concepts. For me, it's the thing we focus on a lot here is just all about creating 2-on-1s on the puck. And that doesn't mean it's always a tight 2-on-1. Sometimes, you're reading the play and you're reading the pressure. And so you created that option, but it might be further up the ice. And other times it's recognizing the pressure, and it's that tight on one's going to be really tight to the puck. So those 2-on-1s, that number in space, that's a really important part, even just a foundation for all 3 zones. Recognizing and attacking the situation. So we want more than a systematic scheme. We want to have more recognition from our players in regards to where the pressure is coming from. Recognizing rush options based on the gaps that they have, and recognizing the rush options based on, the numerical advantage or disadvantage. And then ozone concepts, we want to teach these guys, the offensive side of the game. I think there are a lot of reads that can be made, and players can understand, how to read off of each other. And for younger players, this is going to be different than from the age that I work with or the level that I work with. Just like if I was coaching, minor pro hockey or college hockey, I'd probably be doing some things different than the age group that I'm currently at. But the idea the idea of focusing in on habits and concepts first, that's what would stay the same for me at any level that I worked. Offensively, just some things that we talk about, automatic net fronts, separate and converge, pulling players away from the net only to create space for yourself, being a threat in the background. A lot of it has to do with, just recognizing pressure and how to spread out the opponents, and how to read off of each other, in order to support the puck and to be able to not just maintain possession, but to be able to create time and space for yourself and for your teammates. And then lastly, as I've said numerous times, this comes last. This comes dead last for me. I think systems are overrated. I don't think that it's a win. I think sometimes as coaches, we feel like that this is, if we can come up with the best scheme and the best system, that's going to help our players win. I think that, it's the opposite. I think you need to have, it's going to be, teaching those concepts and habits and having that be the foundation. At some point, players need to, not at every age, but at older age groups, there is a point where they need to learn how to play within the team game plan. And I think that's probably more important than learning how to be a part of that than any kind of system that you could put in. But those foundations, those concepts, that continuous skill development, that's what's most important. And systems don't win. You can go through, I've been very fortunate for some of the places that I've been able to work at, and I had teams that have won championships at various levels. At no point did I think there was a system that won. Then I walk out and say, boy, did we put in the best system in place, and that's why we won a championship. It had to do with collective growth throughout the entire year. It had to do with leadership. It had to do with buy-in. And I don't think you're going to get buy-in from trying to shove a system or down a players, into a player. It's going to be buy-in from players understanding that you care about them and their development, and they love being a part of something bigger than themselves. That's typically what wins. I also think that with systems, what it can do is it can do the exact opposite of what sometimes coaches think it'll do. It can really hinder individual and collective growth. I think it can put players in a position where that hesitation is in place. I think we need to keep the sticks in their hands. We need to keep the brains in their heads, and we got to be teaching them as we go along. And a lot of times that is teaching from mistakes. I'm not going to touch on this long, but sometimes, people have asked, well, what about special teams? I think very similar to this in the sense that, as you go up to higher levels, it will factor in more in terms of some, a detailed game plan, a PK forecheck, a PKD zone. But even there, it comes back to those habits and those concepts and the ability to read off of each other and the ability to have those instinctual habits in place. Sometimes those are a little bit different from the instinctual habits, that they're slightly different, but usually they're built off of each other. And so that for me still is the primary focus, even when it comes to the special teams parts of the game. So probably the thing that I'll most important to me when it comes to my day-to-day job is practice. Like, I love practice. It's something I really missed, from when you work in pro hockey, especially in the National Hockey League, you don't get to practice too often. And for me, this is, I think one of the most exciting parts of the week, and one of my absolute favorite parts of the job is how you practice. And for me, just some of the things that we focus in on: individual development, skill, and habit formation every day. Having a highly competitive environment. We play a lot of small area games. We keep score in a lot of the things that we do. Sometimes we did this a lot earlier in the year. We'll get back to it at different parts throughout the year, is tracking goals, having weekly or monthly winners, just really creating that highly competitive environment. A term I again try to give credit where credit's due. I stole this term too from a coach in Finland who I got to spend some time with a couple summers ago, but he's talked about how they use open-minded exercises. And so that's something that I think is in line with, a belief that I had in practice of basically creating chaos, creating situations that are going to be changing, that the players might not know exactly what they are, but they're going to have to react to them. And I think that leads a lot into that conceptual development that we want to put into place in our practices. I do think that there is a time and place for that, another term I stole from him, closed-minded repetition. That's those more static situations there. But you can be building, I think good passing habits, good, different habits that are built in, but there's not a lot of thinking. And then the big thing is those game-like situations being there on a regular basis. To show you some examples, and I should probably maybe pause there real quick, Jim. What I'm going to follow up with here is just some different examples of some of the things that we're doing for our practices at the National Team Development Program. But does anybody, when it comes to the topics of habits and concepts and skill development, and I guess just kind of what I've outlined is my personal belief in regards to a development cycle. I guess before we go into this, it might be a good time to take a quick pause and maybe answer any questions that are out there in regards to those.
Sure, absolutely, Danny. If anybody has any questions, please jump in and ask Dan. You got a great opportunity. Don't be bashful.
All right.
Well, Maddie Smith, you got nothing?
Not yet, but just soaking it all up. Thank you. Thanks.
All right.
What I put together here is I just touch on some of the things that I think we've done in practice that I feel like could be, has worked well for our group. And with all this, I don't have all the answers. What I'm sharing with you is the things that I've seen that have worked for us throughout this year. And a lot of this has been built off of things that, especially within development leagues, like working for the Chicago Steel, things that we were doing there, or working in college hockey, that I've found, over time really believed in. So not saying it's all perfect to all the answers, but just show you some of the things that I think have worked that maybe you guys can get a drill or an idea or two from. So what I'm going to show you here to start is just something we started doing this year. This was new for me, and I've liked it, especially during the times where we have a little bit more of a heavy practice schedule and less games. What you're going to see is, and I'll let this play through in a second, is we've split up the ice here into it's really into 4 groups, and so it's really a station-based start to practice. And if I play it here, I'll let it start going through a little bit. So over here, this whole section, we have low numbers. We have 2 coaches, and I think it's usually 4 or 5 players, and they're just working on some different shoot elements of their shooting. I think here we're working on one-timer shooting into one-timer shooting with resistance, but this is high repetition where we're also stopping to correct, to put the guys, in some situations where it should be pretty clean with no resistance, then add in some resistance, see how they react, and be able to give feedback to them. Over here, we were just working on, it's hard to see, but this is our coach, Mike Leone. We would have the players just coming up and down the lines here, and they're trying to move his stick. They're just trying to manipulate him. So it's creating repetition into a 2-on-1 situation, which is a big basis of everything that we do in terms of our offense of creating 2-on-1s. Creating 2-on-1s, I think, is a primary concept just at all levels. But now we're adding to it a little bit that we're trying to get him to move they're trying to get him to move his stick. They're trying to manipulate a little bit, cause a freeze to create passing lanes. And then his partner over here who's circled is now moving here to be able to react to his movement, to be able to find that. So working in conjunction to create that 2-on-1. So over here with myself, we were working here on just opening up hips. So we have 5 guys going at once. So it'd be this player, there's 2 more that are out of the screen right now. And they're working just 4 players that are stationary. This is the secondary part of what we were doing. They were just working a puck around their body. So working on their range of motion. And then the active player would be going around in no particular order while opening up their hips. So that edge work is being worked on here. Range of motion with your stick skills is being worked on here. And you have 5 players who are, for the entire time they're going to be here, are going to have a puck on their tape. So I think this was the first day that we did it. I don't know how pretty it was, but you know, they're working on those elements. And then at the far end, which you can't see right now, our goalie coach, Dave Lassonde, who's our national goaltending coach, and who's just been a great resource, not just on the goaltending side, but just, you know, as a great hockey mind, and joined us this year. He's working with our goaltenders, and he would have a group of players. And then every 5 minutes they rotate. And so we'd spend the first 20 minutes of our practice doing that. And we felt like we were able to hit on a lot of work in regards to habit formation some days, that skill work, you know, and then again, you know, also some areas where players are going to have to think and read situations. So those were some of the station-based practices, you know, that we've started doing. So this was another one here that we did another day. So we changed it this day. I think we were getting closer to game time. Down here, we were actually just working in groups of 5 on some breakout habits. And so this was a lot of shoulder checking, awareness, you know, low center support, wall play, having those in there. We put them in some different situations where they could work on this. Here, we were working on some one-on-ones, creating time and space. So you had the one-on-one players, and then you had players on the outside that will be working with them and be passing options. So now you're working essentially a small area game like situation here, a one-on-one with passing options. They'd get high reps. Obviously in this, even though we were only going 5 minutes, there'd be a work to rest ratio that was put in as well. And then see if you can see it here. Pull it back. In the middle, it's tough to see, but you have a coach right here who's circled. You'd have one player who's coming up and down the wall with a puck, and then another player who's just putting light pressure on him. The coach here would be showing him numbers on his hand. So he'd be raising his hand and giving different numbers, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The player with the puck had to work on that puck protection while having the awareness to be able to yell out to the coach what number he's calling out. And then down here, we had the goalie shooting. So that was something that we started doing this year, which I've really liked. It's something that we're going to continue doing in the future. We actually felt when we started practice that way, we were really happy too, with just the level of engagement and the level of energy that we had in that practice. On almost every other practice day outside of that, we'll start with some form of, you know, puck protection, you know, habit formation, a lot of puck support. It'll vary from day to day. So I'll give you some examples. The puck support, puck possession has become a big one. So our goalies will be getting warmed up. Sometimes they'll have shooters down there. Sometimes it'll just be them by themselves. And then down at the other end or in the neutral zone and other end, we'll be working with the other players. Hopefully everybody can see the video pretty clear. So this has become my new favorite thing that we do to start practice, because I've seen the results, and we do it at least once a week. So we call this, because I think it's from Larry Onoff, so we call it Larry Onoff. He didn't give this to us directly, but supposedly he's the one who came up with the idea. It's so simple, but I'm telling you, it's awesome. I love it. My staff loves it. All you do is you use the whole zone, and it's 5-on-3 in zone. And it's been great in terms of just seeing the way the guys move the puck, they support the puck. The rules that we put into place are, so you see the 5 blue players, and then you have the 3 red players on defense. 5 blue players all have to either 1 or 2 touch the puck. So they can't stick handle it. Like they can 2 touch it, so they can kind of go backhand, forehand, and then move it. But that's it. If they move it any more than that, then, you know, the other team gets it, or maybe we try, some days we keep track of how many consecutive passes we get. Now this video, I try to get recent because it's a lot better. This was early in the year. But the other part of it too is for the defensive players now, they're working on making those reads, defensive stick positioning. And then when they get the puck, they want to possess the puck as a group of 3 versus 5, but there's no rules in place for that. They can protect it and stick handle it as long as they want. So you see just an idea. It's a little chaotic here, not as clean as where we have it now. You see even right there, that little, he didn't have his stick. It's not a position. He tries to kick it out. Like, it's awesome. Like that's the game. Like that's the stuff you want to be working on. Is just kind of reacting to that. You see that quick movement, always creating that 2-on-1 on the puck. And then, you know, again, the thing that really stands out for me the most is to have any kind of success at this, there has to be constant awareness of your options. You constantly have to be gathering information. You constantly have to be talking to each other. You constantly have to be moving to create new passing lanes. And so it works on all those things. And like to see, we've done it a lot, but just to see the progress of like where it's at now when we do this compared to where it was at the beginning of the year, it's been really cool to see. And so something that I'm using a lot now this year. This is another one. This is real simple. I think you can do something like this at a lot of different age groups. Like, and I would do this, you know, even as a warm up with sometimes pro players. Like this is just good reps. But you know, just it puts them into some good habit formation along with skill work. So you can do this in a variety of different ways. On this particular day, we have groups of 4 going together. So we want within their group of 4, just hard passes. And this is really more, this is skill work, but this is their rest. And then when I blow the whistle, it's a 3-on-1. So on this particular day, we were working that offensive triangle, constantly moving off of each other here to create that next passing lane. And so both of these should always be 2 passing lanes on either side. You know, this was early in the season, and defensively, you're working on your stick detail, your stick positioning, you know, you're angling on the puck, you're closing on the puck. So all those elements are in play. On this one, it's hard to see, but there is a line drawn through the middle of the ice like this. And so now they have possession of the puck. And so here you can see the blue team has the offensive advantage with 4 men. And then the red on the other side has 3. So when the red gets the puck, they have to pass it over here to the other side of the ice where they have the numerical advantage. And then the blue is on defense. And the nice thing on this is it can't be completely mindless. When the defensive team gets it, just like in a real game, there has to be, you know, that next play. And so if they just mindlessly throw it over to the other side without any kind of a thought process, or if these players aren't in a position to react, well, then they're leaving it up to chance where the blue players can now be in defensive position, get it and send it right back. So there needs to be some separation, having the eyes up, finding a good passing option, making a clean play there to keep transition and to go to the other side. So now here we're working from both sides. So now this is actually probably a little bit more special teams types concepts that we're working on while working on that idea of creating 2-on-1. So now we put some boundaries in place where on both sides are going, this ice is actually split in half. The red players here, we told them you have flank up and down, same thing over here. You have your high option at the blue line. You got your low option at the goal line. And so you can make this a competition as well. On this particular day, we made it a competition where the blue team 4 versus 2 got a puck at the same time as the red team 4 versus 2. And we were keeping track on who can go the longest without losing the puck. So if they make a poor pass and it goes out of play, then the other team wins. If the defending players create separation and get the puck, then the other team wins. And so they're actually working together on both that offensive and defensive side. And again, just that awareness. This is a little bit more in terms of stationary. They don't have to necessarily move as well as quickly, but if they do, then again, they're leaving it to chance. And so we talk to players about, even though if you don't feel like you have to constantly move and to be that option to make sure that a passing lane is created. And it would go again until one team lost possession of the puck and the other team would get a point. So on this one is another one that you can see. Some days we would be doing this. We would do this with both groups, just one side going at a time. Other days we'd be doing it here at the same time. So this ice is actually cut into quadrants in this particular puck possession game that we're doing. I'll just draw up from one side here, the diagram, and explain it to you. So The red team here has 3-on-2 advantage, and the blue team with 2, once they get possession, they have to pass it to the blue player on the other side. The 2 blues join to make the 3, and then 2 of the 3 red players will come over. So it's a constant 3-on-2. And it's again working those offensive concepts, triangles, moving to support each other here, defensively working stick to puck detail, angling, reading off of each other, taking away that time and space. And then I like the transition element that's in there as well. So those are all some examples. Some of those we probably do a little bit more than others. And there's others as well that we'll add in there just to kind of keep things fresh. But you get an idea of some of the things that we're starting our day with. The other thing that we'll start our day with on some days, and it depends on where we are in the week, is working some of that habit formation drills. So talking about working good habits. So an example here, again, this would be something the goalies are getting warmed up. You have the players moving around here in this circle. This is all puck protection. So we would talk about some of the things that we're looking for here, but it's, 4 players in a very tight area. 1 player here who's just engaging and looking to knock pucks out of the circle. The other 4 players have to have that awareness of where that pressure is coming from, if there is pressure, and then protecting the puck. And so you can see right here now there's only 2 players left. We go till there's only 1 player that's still in the circle, and then that player would be the winner for that round. This would be different here. I think, we do this in junior hockey and on, it becomes an important habit that you want to have of just working to get inside position on an opponent and working on that puck protection. So this for me is an important habit to have. And, you're not able to work in a game. The game happens so quickly and there's so many one-on-one battles that are had in any given hockey game. You don't want this to be an instinctual habit where, when those 50-50 puck battles come in, you're not waiting until you get to the puck to engage. And we work with our players on getting inside position on the opponent before they get to the puck. So this is one that we actually started doing this when I was working with the Chicago Steel and still do it now, especially early in the season, is you'll have, 6 dots are being used. You can see the player, if you just use this circled example, is the one to look at. Players are starting with their heels on the wall. On the whistle, they'll work to get this puck that's on the dot. And the key element is just getting inside your opponent's hands to maintain and protect, use your body to protect your stick, get around the puck, and then from there continue to possess the puck in a small area. So this would be on the whistle, everybody be going at once. They'd work to get inside position. Sometimes the puck gets knocked loose and goes to another part of the rink, but now it's just, again, you're creating chaos and guys have to have their heads up. And they would go until there's a whistle. On the whistle, a lot of times we'll make this a little competition. It'd probably be like 3 push-ups on the line for the player that doesn't have a puck. This was another one that we would do. This would be within practice, but just working on some of those, that habit formation on one-on-one play, both on the offensive and defensive side. So here in this, we would be putting the one-on-one as a starting point from different positions. Sometimes the offensive player had a strong advantage. Sometimes he was at a disadvantage, working on getting pucks to the inside here offensively. Defensively, working on that habit of chasing, coming from behind and looking to cut off that front post. So putting the players in some different situations where they can really work on to develop some of those one-on-one hockey habits. This is just an example. This was what was going on at the other end. And you can see here just from this quick look at it, we're putting players in varying degrees of difficulty in terms of their ability to get the puck to the net or to defend that one-on-one. So I won't touch on these as much. These are just different drills, typical drills. I think these, in terms of this is the one that I would like to spend a little more or to finish with, because I think these are important. I think these small area games are some of the best things that you can be doing. We do them all the time. We actually will within the first part of practice, we'll have at least one small area type game competition. Usually we end up doing early on in practice 2 back-to-back. I found that really enhances the rest of practice. So that habit, puck protection, puck possession, creating 2-on-1, skill development, habit formation will lead us off. And then we'll usually do one, shooting drill, which is probably more for the goalies. We try to have good habits and details within that as well. Net front play, flash screens, being on the goalie's eyes, pushing off of the net, things like that. incorporate into it. And then we'll have one or two, usually on most days, 2 small area games, and that leads into the other parts of practice. Almost every given day, we'll finish practice with some sort of a small area game as well. So just to give you some examples, some of these are very simplistic. Some of these might have some more rules to them. 2-on-2 out of the corner, doing this from both ends here, keeping score. There's a lot of ways to do this. I think that 2-on-2 play is so important in this game, especially that low 2-on-2 play. That's something that we'll work on a lot. We have a lot of variations in regards to how we'll transition from one group to the next. And this particular one is just an offense, defense out. We like this game a lot. This is one that we'll use on a pretty, if not weekly, then every other week basis, where it can be played 3-on-3 or 2-on-2 in the neutral zone. Passing support options. This is early in the year, because I definitely wouldn't have allowed him to be taking a knee in the middle of the game, but just noticing that as I'm watching. All the passing options here that are up and down the blue line, so they can pass either one. This is great offensive concepts in terms of moving into space, creating new passing lanes for each other, having that pass support, giving goal plays. And then defensively, these players can't score. And as you'll find, even at higher levels, when you put these guys on the line, even though they can't score, they'll become a magnet to the defensive players, will end up chasing it and then create breakdowns and create great teaching points for them defensively. So this will transition. Sometimes we put in rules where you have to pass to one of your teammates in line before you go transition from defense to offense. Other times we just let them play. But that's one setup there that we use pretty regularly. This is one we used early in the year, a little different. I liked it. We haven't used it as much lately, but this is just going to be, so the red team is going to be attacking the far end here. Blue team is defending this net that we're looking at right here. So all their passing options are really in that transition situation as they transition from the defensive end of the ice to the offensive end. And just having this right here, you can see just even that movement of having to come back to support pucks to create new passing lanes. They have those give and go options there and puck support at the far end. And then you can see the transition opportunities that occur there out of the defensive side of the ice. This is one that we've done in some different ways, which I've liked a lot, where you have offensive, you have your 2 players here in red that are staggered off, one low, one high. Same thing in blue. So those 4 players that are now circled, they're stationary. They can only move a foot or 2. And then inside here, you have your 2-on-2, which is active, and they can go anywhere in zone. To go from defense to offense, you have to pass to one of those 2 players. But what it does is it just creates a lot of different, scoring situations. Those players on the outside can shoot. When this game got good for us, we changed the rules of it in that these players had to 1 or 2 touch the puck, and that they couldn't stick handle. We don't do it like that every time, but I feel like it becomes better, especially at some of the older age groups that you might have, where they need to really work on some of that puck awareness, knowing where they're going to get it before they get it. And then this is another one that we've kind of built off of that, where it's 2-on-2 and they're coming up and down the rail. So these 2 options here on the outside, now they can skate. Usually we'll actually draw a line for these guys here, and we call this 2-on-2 rails. So the red team scoring right here, they have those outside flank options, but those players, when it's been good, have been have to 1 or 2 touch the puck. Now they can pass it across to each other. They can pass it to the active player. Early in the year, we didn't. When you're seeing this video is from, we didn't put those rules in place. I felt like it got even better there. And you can see the transitional elements there. And then on the defensive side, just that element of awareness of getting back, is all in place there. So we also, on a lot of days, will try to add in, depending on where we are in the week, a little bit more of those tight area space, competitive, grinded out type of small area games as well. And so this is one example of one we've used this year a number of times. Sometimes we'll bring these lines back. These 2 players right here are acting almost like defender, where a defenseman would be, and red has the same thing up top. So when the blue gets it, they're shooting it at that designated net, which is in line here with their defenseman. And then when the red gets the puck here, they transition to go the other way. So now you're working your 2-on-2 play defensively down low. We have certain things that we look for in our offensive game, and habits that we want to have, and that we want to be looking for, reads, being able to read off of each other. You can work on some of those as well. And then just that net front offense, you're constantly working on that, which is, where I think at all levels where most of the goals are going to be scored. So there's good transitional elements in a game like that. This is another one that we do work on a lot, which is really simple. It's just we call this the 3-on-3 3-minute game. We put 3 minutes on the clock. So if we start it back here, it's starting off, blue is going to be on offense for 3 minutes. The puck always goes into the corner where they have the advantage. Red is on defense. You're just playing straight 3-on-3, but red is going to stay on defense. And that same group of 6 will stay in play until the red team breaks it out. Once they get possession of the puck and they break it out, or if the head coach is judge, jury, gets to make all the decisions, I feel like they've just gone too long. That next group, you'll throw it in, and you can see now they have to come in. And so from that quick sort out situation, both the offensive and defensive side, there becomes a lot of good reads. And then from the defensive side, it doesn't end just, after 30 seconds. It ends once that transition happens of puck recovery and then breaking it out with possession towards the top of the circle. So that's, I think I've obviously already gone over. So much for that 30 minutes and then Q&A. But, hopefully that gives you guys, just everybody on the call, an idea of some of the things from a, philosophical standpoint, the beliefs that I've developed over time in regards to coaching, in regards to development, in regards to, I guess, areas of focus, and maybe give you some ideas as well as some of the things that I feel have worked well for myself as a coach on the ice.
Excellent, Dan. That was awesome. A lot of great stuff. Anybody have any questions we can hang out for a little bit? I'd certainly want to entertain any questions that might be out there. Don't be bashful. No. Well, I'll start it off.
I actually do have a question. I'll jump in here real quick. I noticed with a lot of the small area games that you were demonstrating here and showing us, that the simple concepts of starting and stopping of that drill, I noticed that you incorporated a lot of transitional elements into that stop and start of the drill. Do you recommend taking that approach? I know we've highlighted it in some of our coaching education programs and how we start and stop drills, whether that be a shot and a rebound instead of just peeling off in the corner. I really appreciated that transition element. Is that something that you would recommend coaches looking at?
Yeah, I would, whenever you can. I think there's some instances where it becomes hard, and we do it too. Like, I think if you can ever, what's the next play going to be? If you can let that play out. And sometimes with these players too, they're going to figure that out on their own. You don't even need to tell them, like, we're doing it for this reason. Like, I think sometimes letting them solve that puzzle a little bit on their own, but having it where it is a little bit of a puzzle, and they're able to have those elements. Sometimes your focus is going to be on, you want the game to be a teacher of something that, it might be harder to have that transitional element, but I think whenever possible, that's the game. The game, there's, it's what's that next play? What's that next step? What's the next thing? What's the next sequence that's going to happen? So you can put them in those situations where those dots are maybe connected for them a little bit on their own. I think it's great for them.
Good point. Thank you.
Dan, I have a question on video. Do you have a video coach solely?
No, not here. No, we all do it. We split it up. We all have video editing software, the whole coaching staff. I don't have a full-time video coach that's dedicated to just video. So it's a little different. Like, as in the National Hockey League, you have a small army, it feels like, of video coaches. I think we had 3 in Nashville. I had a full-time video coach, director of hockey ops in Chicago. We have a lot of people here though, like that, are using it. We do have an intern who's here who works with both teams, who will tag games during it. So while that's not his title as video coach, he does a lot with it. And that's one of the interns that's been here for a couple of years, and he's good at it. But we divide it up post game. we all have different things. Like I'll kind of divide up after every game. Usually it's pretty standard, but throughout the entire coaching staff, you know, we're all doing it. We're all going through different things in regards to cutting it up and going through it. And we videotape every practice as well. And we won't necessarily cut up every practice, but we do, you know, especially early in the year, we're going through it afterwards.
Are you taking video and meeting line by line or player by player?
Player by player. Yeah. It's we set the goal to have every player gets a individual meeting per week with video. And so we've done that pretty consistently. The only time, like right now, we were in a kind of a funny schedule with games. We're playing almost like we were playing every other day, or, you know, 4 games a week. So we didn't want to go overload on the players in terms of too much. And so we didn't, you know, this past week, I think it was probably the first week, but on almost every given week, we set up the goal as a staff that I want the players, everybody, to get video feedback once per week from us. And then as we're going into kind of this phase of the year too now, we're actually going through NHL shifts to cut players that are comparable, and then we'll sit down with them and show them that player in addition to their shifts and their clips. And it won't be all the shifts either. Like, I shouldn't say shifts. Not once have we ever sat down with a player and just watched all their shifts. We trim up the information and then we try to chunk it into areas of their game that they can watch in a sequence, and just to be able to chunk that information for them rather than, you know, maybe just jump around and just watch the shifts. We want it to be clear points of emphasis of what we're showing them.
That's going to determine who's in your lineup night in, night out.
Well, the video?
So you have you have a bigger roster, you know, like 22, 25 you carry?
No, everybody. Yeah, we have, well, when we're healthy, we have 13 forwards and 8 defensemen. We dress all 8 defensemen. So we play everybody. This is a development. My job is primarily development. The only separation usually on ice time on most nights is going to be special teams. We'll practice everybody on we'll practice both sides of special teams, but when it comes to games, you know, we won't have everybody on the power play. We won't have everybody killing penalties. We try to split it up a little bit that way, but we play. I literally, like, I can't remember a game where, you know, I'm necessarily cutting the bench.
Good. Maddie, or anybody else?
Yeah, it was, you know, one thing on the small area games, Coach. I mean, obviously the guys love to compete, keep score, but then how do you kind of emphasize those anticipation skills, the TNTs, kind of you and coaches pointing things out in between the sets, or you let the game do the teaching work?
I personally, it'll change a little bit from day to day. Like some days, if they've done it before, I might give them a little reminder of like, hey, this is the reason why we're doing this. This is what I'm looking for. And then other days, we'll say before, it's like, we're going to stop it. Be ready. I know it's coming. I'm going to stop it. But that's okay. Like, let them make the mistake. I think you'll learn a little bit better. I think honestly, than if you can go out there and you can sometimes just feel the mistake, like recognize like, it didn't work, and then stop it and bring everybody in quickly and just say, hey, this is the reason why we're doing it. This is the purpose behind it. Like there's always going to be a purpose to what you're doing. Sometimes you want to give it to them. I think a lot of times they'll get it at the end, but let them find it out a little bit the hard way, you know. And it's not, you know, yelling at them like, how could you not know that? Like a lot of times if they don't know the purpose, they're probably not supposed to know it. Like that's why they knew everything, then like I'd be out of work, you know, like none of us would be necessary. So, but letting the game be the teacher, I think, especially with younger kids. I mean, and even some of these games too, like I'm giving you purpose. This is the reason behind the younger kids, like let them play. Like even for our guys, sometimes it's just like, you know what, let's just go play. Like let them play. Let's just go 3-on-3. No rules, no nothing else. Just go play. And, you know, like sometimes just get on the bench, just play 3-on-3 for a little bit. Like, so there's the younger ages for sure. Like, you know, these kids are, you know what, they're a lot smarter. I think we give them credit for. Like I even see with my kids sometimes. Like I have 4 kids and 3 of them are pretty close in age, and like just seeing them go outside and sometimes the things that they come up with, like what game do you want to play? I don't know. Pick something. Make something up. Like they come up with something way better than I ever would. You know, they kind of figure out how it goes too. And so I think a lot of times, even some of that unstructured, like I'm talking about purpose and, you know, these things, like they're gonna, some of it, you know, especially at the younger ages, I think when you create that right environment, they're gonna be able to pick it up and they're gonna be able to figure it out. And then maybe that at that point, you're like, hey, you got it. This is why we did it. There it is. You figured it out on your own.
Somebody else have a question?
Yeah, for those small area games, how often do you change the rules or change it up on them?
It depends on the day. Like, you know, some days I want to go, like, it depends on the day of the week. I probably won't change it drastically. We're at the point now where we'll keep throwing in a new one every now and then just to keep things fresh, but we're probably doing a lot that they know at this point where we're not having to draw it up. But tweak it a little bit based on something that we want to add in, which, you know, an element of the game we want them thinking about. We might change it that way. A lot of times it's going to be the day of the week. Like, do we want to keep things even numbers where it's limited time and space, or do we want to in situations where there's a lot of spatial awareness that needs to be involved, and there's, you know, that might be a multi-net game where they can score on either net and they got passing options, and there's mostly the key focus. Again, I wouldn't say this to them, but it's going to be just putting them in situations where spatial awareness, you know, is critical on both the offensive and defensive side of the puck. Those types of things probably won't be as taxing on them from a physical standpoint. So, you know, maybe later in the week, you know, as we're getting closer to games, we're incorporating those more, where those tight area situations are going to be used more earlier in the week. But I try to stay cognizant of how much in any given week. You know, I don't want it to be all time and space situations, because the game's not just all time and space situations. Like I think there's a need for that in terms of recognizing and learning spatial awareness. But the game's also, it can be very ugly at times, and it can be very tight at times, and there could be no time and space at times. And so I want them to have both. And so I try to know, like, rather than just doing one, all right, well, we had this yesterday, so now maybe we do this, or maybe we need a follow-up from yesterday. Maybe we need to keep doing that. So it's going to change from week to week and from day to day.
Excellent. Anybody else with a question?
Hey, Dan, great presentation. Love all the small area stuff. Fantastic. Just going through your pre-practice plans. Obviously, you're going through it beforehand. The on-ice focus areas, skills, habits, TNTs, awesome stuff. How much are you focusing on before practice? Are you going over goals, objectives for the day? I coach a high school team. We're on the ice twice a week for about an hour. So I'll do like a warm-up, small area games, and we'll get into some ADM stations and then kind of go into some flow drills. So I don't know how much time you have on the ice, but if you could run me through like your pre-practice kind of flow, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we meet every day before practice. Typically what we'll do is, we meet as a coaching staff in the morning, pretty early, and, you know, we'll go, every coach will get a copy of the practice. Typically we'll talk about it a little bit the day before too. Like, I'll draw up practice, as I said before, like, I'm a little selfish that way, I think, sometimes, but I do, like, we'll be divided up. One thing that I've changed as a head coach from the last time I was head coach is I divide up practice a lot more in terms of who's running what. Like, I actually tried not to be the voice as much as I used to be. I try to, I like to design it, but I will take input from the coaching staff. If they have ideas or a drill that they like, they'll give it. Sometimes they gave it to me 2 weeks before, and then I know in the place, all right, well, here, I want to put it in today. This would be a great drill for today. So they're constantly giving me drills that maybe ideas that they have, might not get in the next day, but the next time it fits, it does go in. And even if it's something that's maybe a game or something that, you know, I've used in the past, I try not to run everything. I in a perfect world, and I'm not perfect, but like, I would love it if every single coach is running a segment of practice. And then that way, because I think for me, it allows me to watch and communicate with the players more. And I trust my coaches. I have a great staff. And so, like, I trust those guys. And I also think it's good for their development, that they're running portions of practice and that they're getting in front of the team and they have a voice in front of the team. And it's not just me as the head coach. And that changed from the last time I was a head coach. But So we'll go over, talk the night, usually the day before, some ideas. I'll write it up. They'll get we go over a meeting in the morning. Everybody gets a copy of practice. It's divided up, go over who's doing what. If they're not running the drill, who's going to be where. Sometimes it's, if we're doing smaller games, you're used to, this coach stays with this team, this coach stays with this team, or this coach watch the offense, this coach watch the defense. Divide all that up. We meet with the team. The players usually are going to get, if they're coming in first for practice, sometimes they come school and then practice. Other times they go on ice and then school. So it changes from day to day. But whatever practices, it's usually going to be, we're meeting, 45 minutes before in the locker room. I would say, 4 out of 5 days, there's a video element. Like if we're working on something and sometimes it's just a concept, we'll show some video clips usually of us. All right, this is going to be something that's relevant for practice today. Or sometimes it's just some NHL video of like, hey, this is relevant for what we're going to be doing on the ice. Or maybe it's just some NHL video of going through these are some of the next level habits, concepts we've talked about. Here's some examples from some games the night before. But we'll have something, we'll always meet. We never don't meet, even if it's just me coming in and saying, hey, it's going to be a quick one today. Let's be ready. This is a couple things we're looking for. If there's a new drill and it's like a day I want to go fast, I might drop one drill or one thing before in that meeting. Typically, I don't. Typically, like now we're at the point where practice runs pretty quick, where we're just giving them a quick reminder, if we're doing this, let's focus on this, or we're doing this and just let them go out there and maybe make a mistake or do it right or whatever it might be. Or we'll go to the board quickly. We try to keep it as fast as possible. Earlier in the year, we were having to go to the board more, which I don't love, but early in the year, we also had to stop and talk a lot more than, I would like to, but it's what was necessary in terms of just kind of getting to the point of, having those habits and details and everybody being on the same page and understanding, some of those focus points. So that's 45 minutes, go over things, and then you get going on the ice. Long answer to a quick question there for you. Sorry.
No, that's great, man. Are you guys using Huddle for video stuff, or you guys have a different software?
We use Exos.
Okay.
That's what the presentation I just showed you was off of our video editing software.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyone else have a question? Don't be bashful. No? There was a question from Mr. Jablonic in the chat there for you, Dan. He's asking kind of like from a coaching mentorship, kind of what did you get from the coaches, learn from good and bad as you kind of went through your hockey progression? You said, you started later than some, but I'm sure along the way you've had some different experiences with your coaches that coached you.
Yeah, I've been really fortunate. I mean, we could be here a long time if you want me to go through all of them. I mean, I have, it's something I've been blessed with. Is just I've had some great people help me along the way. And, when I first started coaching, even before I got into coaching, a guy, the former Florida Panthers and Boston Bruins, and he was the Chicago Blackhawks skills coach, Paul Vincent. He was the Hawks skills coach when they won one of their cups. But he kind of always took care of me when I was in college and looked after me in the summers and let me skate with his pro groups, even though I had no right being there. And so he really encouraged me to get into coaching, and he was great to me along the way. And I worked for a really great coach at a prep school named Paul Canada. The school is Milton Academy, but he had done a lot with USA Hockey, and he kind of got my foot in the door, just even doing select festivals. And he was great with the small area games. Like I think he was ahead of his time in terms of what he was doing, when I started coaching. And so that really helped build a base for me in terms of thinking about things and putting players in situations there where it's not just you're going around cones, but, you're putting them in, creating that environment for them to learn. And then Keith Elaine is my biggest mentor. He is the head coach at Yale University. He had coached in the National Hockey League. He's coached every different tournament and level of USA Hockey, from multiple Olympics, 96 World Cup team, World Juniors. And so I worked for him for 6 years. And there's no one person that was a bigger mentor to me in terms of just kind of you know, probably the things that I've learned, you know, and believed in as a coach, and a lot of the things in indirect ways I shared with you here today. I had 2 years when I was at Yale that Red Gendron, who's now the head coach of Maine, he was the associate head coach. So it was Keith Elaine, myself, and Keith Elaine, Red Gendron, and then myself. I was the second assistant there, and that was just probably the best years for my development as a coach, was being with those two on a daily basis, and we had a lot of fun. But I learned a ton from them and all their experiences, both of them having been coached in the National Hockey League. So those guys, and then Peter Laviolette, the last 3 years was unbelievable to me. And, you know, I think for me, like, you're always finding new mentors. You know, I think you'll always have those mentors that you started with, but you might find new ones along the way because you're at a different point in your career. And it was interesting for me. Like, I went from being assistant coach for, I think, you know, again, the best mentor I've ever had and one of the best people I've ever been around in Keith Elaine. And then I went to be a head coach to kind of, you know, try to find my way as a head coach for the first time, and, you know, try to do things that, you know, that I learned from him while still trying to be myself. And then just by chance having that, you know, the way it worked out, leaving being a head coach to be an assistant coach again, but now to be under Peter Laviolette, and the way he worked and the way he just, you know, really empowers everybody around him. You know, I think I was in a good frame of mind to learn then too, because I hadn't been in his shoes by any means, because he head coach in the National Hockey League is a lot different than a head coach in the USHL, but I had been a head coach, so now I viewed things differently. And I think when you go back and forth for those different roles and you learn from different people that way, you can really grow a lot. So
No,
I could keep going though. I got a lot. I've been
I know you do, Jay. I
all the
know.
people I've been around in this game,
Yep.
and the people that have been great to me.
No, right there with you. I agree. Hey, you know, one thing we talk about in our coaching clinics is that, you know, we like to have coachable players, but I always tell the coaches that you need to be coachable as well as a coach. And so maybe from your perspective, you know, you took an unconventional path, right? Me being from the Northeast, we're playing hockey when we're 4 or 5. You didn't start till you were 11. And how did you educate yourself? What have you done over the years from learning to be a coach, you know, beyond your mentors, obviously, but on your own? What have you reached out to, tools you've used, things you've done?
I mean, everything, you know, literally. I mean, I still will. Like, if I ever get to the point where I've got 6 months and I feel like I haven't learned anything new, then shame on me, you know. Or if I go a month and I haven't learned anything new, and there's no, you know, there's not a class that you can, there's classes that you can take and there's seminars, but there's not a degree. You can't go get a college degree in coaching hockey. So I think it's doing things like this. Like I've done, you know, like one of the reasons I'm always quick to say yes to anybody that asks me if I can do any of these is because, like, I love these things. Like, they're great. I've always loved being hearing from other coaches. I'd go to every clinic I possibly could. Still will, still do, you know, like even when I try to go, I've been fortunate, very fortunate in the fact that sometimes people ask me to present at these clinics. Like, I try to go and stay for all the other ones too, if I can. My wife sometimes tells me I can't, but I try to. But, you know, I think it's, you know, there's books to be read, there's articles to be read, just watching the game, breaking down the game. That's always been something I've enjoyed doing. Now I have easier access to it, but even as a young coach, like, I mean, when I first got married 11 years ago, like, I was still like, you know, we had the DVRs, or not DVRs, it was just the DVDs. Re-recording. I'd be waking up in the middle of the night, set an alarm to go downstairs to hit stop when I was recording the West Coast games, and you watch them the next day and try to break them down and take some new things and maybe some things that you can teach your players from there. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can get yourself better, you know, and now it's, you know, any resource that you can find. Like, I like looking at other sports now too. I think that's something that's maybe changed. I like looking at some of the things that they've done in Europe. Speaking with coaches whenever you can, whether it's just a quick conversation somewhere, maybe somebody that's a different, you know, has a different background than yours, that maybe has some experience that are different than yours. Like, every summer I'll try to meet, you know, 2 to 5 coaches for, even if it's just from an hour to a full day, just to go talk and share some ideas. Did a lot with Zoom here this past year. So yeah, I mean, I think any way, like in the summertime, it's a little different for me now, just with kids' ages. But as a young coach, I would every camp, clinic, anywhere I could go just to be working and coaching the game, and then just some of the conversations that you have with different people in the game while you're doing those. There are all ways that you can learn and help make yourself better.
Sure, sure. Well, anybody else have any questions for Dan? I know we've kept him a little over, but he loves talking hockey. I know that. Anybody? Okay. Well, hey, Dan, I just want to thank you very much for taking, some time and extra 30 on top of it. And then that's what happens when we start talking about the game we love. So I really appreciate the insight. Hopefully the group did as well. And we look forward to maybe having you back sometime down the road and continue the conversation.
No, absolutely. Jim, thanks a lot for having me. Good luck to everybody. I know it's a crazy time for all of us and for our players that we're all working with. And, hopefully we can just keep, adjusting, adapting, and finding ways to help each other out as we get through this. So thank you very much for having me on tonight. Real honor.
Right. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.